Hey everybody, Gabe here, and as most of you know, today, Friday the 13th, the ban list for the next format of Yu-Gi-Oh just came out. And so in this video, I'm gonna showcase the changes that were made, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I think this will impact the meta. So if you just want to see the ban list, here it is. I've laid it out, and I'll quickly just go through it. So newly banned is Dragon Ravine, Self-Destruct button, Sixth Sense, and Return from the Different Dimension. No surprises here, really, although I think these two caught people off guard. Um, Newly limited, we have Blaster, Tempest, Redox, and Tidal, the four big dragon rulers. And alongside them in that newly limited list is Magician of Faith, old fan favorite, Debris Dragon, which was previously semi'd, is now at 1, Divine Wind of the Mist Valley, Spellbook of Fate, Final Countdown, and Sacred Sword of the Seven Stars. Newly semi-limited, we just have two things. We have Chaos Sorcerer and Lone Fire. And then now, no longer limited, although they were previously semi, Tour Guide, Mizuki, Plague Spreader, Archlord Christia, Tenki, or rather, this is Tenki, TG Striker, and the only extra deck card hit M7, which was limited but is now at 3. Alright, so I'm just going to jump right into the discussion part of the video. And I'll talk a little bit about like the decks that I think will be most effective. And so just the first notable thing, right, is the banning of self-destruct button and the limiting of a final countdown. Konami really hates ties, especially in the upper level tournaments, and they really hate decks that either go into time a lot or don't let you play. And so these two things being hit, I think were long in the making, and I'm personally really glad that they're gone, because if you ever fought against these kind of decks or even chain burn or something like that, like it's just really not fun. The other two things that are pretty obvious to have left on this list are Return and Sixth Sense. These are just really degenerate cards that if you drew them and resolved them, they just won you the game or put you in a position that was just impossible to break. And Sixth Sense, so many decks revolve around the graveyard. So even if you called wrong, right, like you would still be set up in a really major way. And honestly, I'm surprised that Return has been legal for so long. Although I guess there are other cards that do similar things, like Rekindling, that I kind of hoped had gotten hit, but I'll take it. I'll take it. And so the biggest thing about this list that I'm sure you guys are here to listen about are obviously what happened to dragons. Obviously dragon rulers and dragoonity rulers, whatever, dominated the meta in a way that no deck since Teledad has really done. Of like the last like 3 or 4 events, both ARGs and YCSs, right? Like 14 of the 16 of the top 16 spots were for some variant of a dragon ruler deck. And I think Konami has definitely took notice of that, and they responded really strongly with, the outright banning of Ravine, the limiting of the rulers, the limitation of Sword. I think they still want the rulers to be used in elemental decks like they were originally envisioned for, which is why they limited them rather than outright ban them. But so with zero babies, with just one of each ruler and Ravine gone completely, I think Dragon Rulers as a deck is just dead until further notice. Maybe some of the more creative minds in Yu-Gi-Oh will come up with a way to keep this deck alive, but I'd be very surprised. Just because once you banish one dragon, it's gone forever. Your color's gone. Something I think is more interesting is that with Ravine gone, pure Dragoonities, which some people speculated would still be pretty strong after rulers were gone, is now severely handicapped because there's just no way of searching out your pieces to do a first turn level 8 play without having to use slightly worse cards like Foolish Burial or Gold Sark on your one Tempest or whatever. And obviously they can still use cards like Gaydurg to set up Reckless Greed, but that makes the deck as a whole much slower, and it's a lot less impressive than the Stardust plus 3 back row and Ravine combos that they were capable of doing on their first turn this previous format. So with Dragons gone, I think the second best deck of the format was definitely Spellbooks. And so the impact this list has on Spellbooks is pretty interesting. And I think Konami knew that they'd be the best deck after Dragons were gone, but really not that much they could have hit in the spellbook engine, since most of it is really just what I call empty plussing. Secrets into masters into another secret search. Obviously that thins your deck out a lot and sets up your grave. Um, but at the end of that whatever series of events, all you get is one card, right? And with Spellbook of Fate at 3, that was really dangerous, right? Because a Spellbook player could go Magician, Secret Masters into Fate, and then be really set up to, next turn do it all again. Maybe summon Tempest, or rather, the Tribute guy, I forget, sorry, into World or Priestess, and then Kaiku, and then just a bunch of shenanigans, all backed up by Fate, which is, in my opinion, one of the best utility cards out there right now. Um, but honestly, I don't know that limiting Fate will really do anything to the deck because they can still search it out really fast, and they can still recycle this from the grave and from the banish zone using Eternity, World, whatever. And you can only use this once per turn anyway, so obviously now you don't have to worry about like multiple Fates being set or one in hand in one set. But to be honest, I don't. I'd be surprised if this affected them that badly since they still have every other piece. And more importantly, now they have Magician of Faith, um, which doesn't necessarily have the best synergy with the deck, but it is a spellcaster, and it does allow you to add a spell card from grave to hand, which means you can get Fate back, you can get Secrets back, you can get any of the search cards that you want back, and you can protect Fate. Tsukiyumi will probably see a lot of use now because that's also what a spellcaster, um, and you can just recycle this forever. So personally, spellbooks are my deck of choice, at least of the decks that are out now, to be the most dominant. Um, Notably, Evil Swarms weren't really hit at all, and that makes a lot of sense because Evil Swarms and other like stunish decks that like stop you from playing, they're only really as good as the best deck that relies on those things. And with Dragon Rulers gone and Dragoonity Rulers gone, I think you'll see a shift more towards XYZing rather than synchroing, in which case, Ophion isn't nearly as scary when you aren't going to synchro summon anyway. Um, they're still good. I think they're still good, but I'd be surprised if they still saw play, especially with the other changes that have happened. Um, and the reason I say that I think there will be a shift towards XYZing is because, Tour Guide, which was the XYZ engine, is now unlimited again. Mizuki is also at 3, and there are a lot of zombie builds that focus on using Mizuki to make rank 4s. With Plague back, we might see a little uptick in synchro zombie decks, but I really do think the power of zombie decks right now lie in like Laval All Chain and other big rank 4s. And that's why I think Ophion will be less effective. And then you have, alongside those other rogue decks like Evil Swarms, you have things like Fire Fist, Constellar, and Gujins, which got a lot more powerful just by the inclusion of a third Tenki now. And I think that'll be good for the game because, all three of those decks are really grindy. They punish poor play, and they, not necessarily they're more skillful, but, you really do have to know when to activate certain things. And so, this third Tenki is really big. I don't really think that TG Striker or Plague will do much, just because Evil Swarms are still out there. Obviously, these are two really good tuners that provide a lot of different utility. Maybe we'll see Plague or Striker being used in agents. There are old agent builds that use Striker or Tour Guide or even Plague to plus off the Shine Balls. And especially with Christie at 3 and Call of the Haunted still at 3, right? Like, we can definitely see a return to those type of builds. But I think agents still suffer the problem they suffered this format, which is they have a lot of strong plays, but they're just a little bit too slow. At least in terms of like compared to like spellbooks, right, which go through so much of their deck so fast and go twice per turn. And Max C is still at 3. Obviously Christie at 3 is really powerful and will definitely end some games, but it'll be interesting to see how agents do in this next format. And so what I want to end on is the deck that I think will be really interesting, which is Plants. And so Plants, if you've been playing long enough and if you remember, were a deck that existed under, the label of Plants, but lots of different decks were categorized under that, and were a fan favorite of mine and many others. Because much like Dragon Rulers, you just had so many options at any given time. Your opening hand, your graveyard, the field. You just could do so much. And I think it was one of the more skillful formats when Plants were dominant, since even the slightest misplay really could lose you the game. And so I'm really excited to see Lone Fire Blossom back at 2. Especially with the new, I think Sylvan it's called, archetype coming out. You know, that's a very plant, a kind of milling, excavating focused deck. How much those decks resemble the old synchro plant decks of old is yet to be seen. But I think there's a definite pushback on me for a plant focused deck to do well. Sadly, Glow Up Ball did not come back. Um, but you know, more than anything, the fact that Lone Fire is at 2 and that Sylvans are coming out is the reason why Debris Dragon is now at 1, because 2 Debris Dragons and 2 Lone Fire Blossoms, especially with Dandelion still running around, is really nutty, and it just makes me reminisce about the days of old. Um, so anyway, I hope you guys liked the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Now that I'm done with classes, hopefully I'll be able to do some more videos, some new duels under this format, you know, testing, some general discussion topics. So yeah, thanks for watching, and enjoy the new format.